Hello, and welcome to a special episode of the weekly album anniversary recap show. I am your host, Caleb, or Caleb the Spy on Twitter and Instagram. I wanted to do a special episode to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of Five Iron Frenzy Day. It's not really an album, it's more of a holiday, and it just didn't feel like it fit into the normal format of the weekly album anniversary recap show. I probably still will mention it because there's a couple relevant releases, but I thought it'd be fun to just do a little mini episode that talks about why this day is fun and important to a lot of us diehard Five Iron Frenzy fans. So, where did the idea of Five Iron Frenzy Day come from? I think, and this is a bit of speculation on my part, but it came from a simple comment that Reese Roper, the lead singer, made during their supposedly final show, November 22nd, 2003. So back in 2003, the band announced that they were breaking up. They ended up putting out one more album called The End Is Near, and then a album that was kind of a joke album, full of just it had some B-sides and had some things that had not been released. And then it had a number of jokes called The Cheeses of Nazareth. They put out those two albums and then they did a farewell tour, the Winners Never Quit tour. They played their final show November 22nd, 2003 at the Fillmore Auditorium in Denver. Reliant K was there, Bleach and Cameron James supported them on the tour, and they ended up selling out that venue, which was kind of a big deal for a local band at the time. They would record that show, and I think a lot of the shows leading up to that final performance, and they would release The End Is Here a year later. And that was what we thought of for a lot of people. It was going to be the end of the, the band. That simple comment in the final show sparked something in a lot of fans. And I know I would just take November 22nd to remember my favorite band. I would listen to some of their music. And that was about it. There wasn't any formal celebrations. I don't think there was a maybe there was old Five Iron Frenzy message boards. Maybe people would talk about it. I don't think Twitter was around and Facebook was around. I definitely was not on them. But I think it was just a day that a lot of us remembered. That's all it really was. That is until 2011. In sometime in 2010, 2011, the domain fiveironfrenzy.com went up for sale and an individual by the name of Joel purchased it. And as a bit of a goof, I think, he put a countdown to November 22nd, 2011, which would have been the 8-year anniversary of the band breaking up and the eighth Five Iron Frenzy Day, or the 8-year anniversary of Five Iron Frenzy Day. He put that up, and the group had been working on or they had released previously, they had worked on a DVD. It's called The Rise and Fall of Five Iron Frenzy. And I do think there had been some conversations among the group about what if we did a comeback, or how would that look, or what would that look like? And the countdown, I think, spurred on additional conversations, and the group decided to give it a shot. They recorded a song called "It Was a Dark and Stormy Night," and on November 22nd, 2011, they announced they were going to do a Kickstarter. They were doing I believe Leonore went live on some website and was doing the announcement, and that website crashed, and then other websites crashed. I do remember having a hard time getting the info that there was kind of this. I think they're coming back, and I don't know if Kickstarter crashed, but a number of sites kind of crashed where they were trying to do it. So finally, the word does get out. They're doing a Kickstarter. Here's a new song that you can download and listen to. And I remember being just blown away. I remember being totally thrilled by the idea that they were going to make a comeback. In between the time they had broken up and the time they announced this comeback, I had met my wife, gotten married, and actually had a couple kids. So even for my wife, it was this experience watching me freak out about this band. She had never seen it this up close and personal. Yes, I had talked about the band. She clearly knew I was obsessed, but this was it manifesting itself right in front of her. I remember being almost overwhelmed that I was listening to new Five Iron Frenzy music. I genuinely couldn't believe it. didn't think it was ever going to happen again. I thought that was it. They're gone. They've moved on to other things, and I was so excited. They launched a Kickstarter and they were hoping to raise $30,000. I think they had set a goal of 30 days to raise $30,000, and they raised that in under an hour. In total, they ended up raising over $200,000, which at the time was the number one musical act. It was the highest grossing musical act on Kickstarter. It's since been defeated, and then their second Kickstarter actually topped it as well. But it was a huge deal that they raised that much money. I think it was only about 3,000 people who supported the Kickstarter, and it kind of showed just how intense the love for this band was to have 3,000 people essentially fund an album at $200,000. So a couple years later, from that Kickstarter, we would get Engine of a Million Plots, but all of a sudden, Five Iron Frenzy Day had this new attachment to it, this new feeling to it that we just hadn't had before. That it just always kind of been there, but all of a sudden, it was very real and very, I want to say the word visceral, but I don't know if that's the right word for it. So a couple years pass, we get Engine of a Million Plots, and then in 2015, on November 22nd, they released another EP. It was called Between the Pavement and the Stars, or Between Pavement and the Stars. I'm not really sure of the title. I think the song is called Between the Pavement and the Stars. I think the actual EP is called Pavement, Between Pavement and the Stars. Anyway, that was super nerdy and not interesting at all. They released that in 2015. It was a couple songs that hadn't been used on Engine of a Million Plots. It also had a song that they had recorded for a fan. I think as a part of the Kickstarter, you could somebody had paid to have them record a song. And if you ever can look up that song, it's called To Astoria. If you can find out about it, it's actually got a really heartfelt story behind it. I'm not going to go into it. It's that dude who it was written for is his story to tell, but he has posted it on Facebook. If you can ever look it up, just look up To Astoria and see if you can figure out what the meaning is. It's a really touching. I always thought the song was a little goofy, and then I found that story and really changed my appreciation of the story and what it meant to that individual. But yeah, Between the Pavement and the Stars, one of my favorite songs. That's a song that I think is talking about somebody losing their faith, and I've struggled with losing my faith over the last couple of years. I've really gone back and forth, and some of the lyrics in that song really speak to me in a strong way when it talks about, and all this time you've never given up and you've never given out. All this time you never go back, but you've never had more doubt. Those words really, really connect with me, that I've had these moments where I've never had more doubt, but I've never felt more strongly about stuff. It talks about, and all this time when there's hardly any day and hardly ever night, and all this time when you're halfway in shadows and halfway in light. I love that imagery that I'm kind of feeling that halfway sort of being here, and that halfway feeling of faith that we all experience, I believe, at some level. So that's Between the Pavement and the Stars, comes out in 2015. And then in 2022, we got a new song called When They Find You, which is Five Iron Frenzy, and it features Mike Herrera of MXPX fame. And so again, it just is adds more of this emotion to that day and more kind of feeling around that day. And I know it's not, a big deal. It's only really 4 days on November 22nd, 2000, or November 22nd, but it still just feels like a really special day to me. Five Iron Frenzy are my favorite band. I still get excited when they retweet something I tweet, or they like a post I have, or they respond, because they really have meant a lot to me, both musically and just their lyrics have really meant something to me. That Between the Pavement and the Stars example really has put words to how I feel about a lot of things. So I will forever be thankful for Five Iron Frenzy, and it's just a really fun day for me to celebrate. So I thought it'd be fun to do a little mini episode where I just talk about Five Iron Frenzy Day. So thanks for joining me. That's it. Real brief. The music at the beginning and the end of the show is the instrumental version of Sing It Out at Street Level by Peg and the Rejected, which is the Dingees in one of their many formations focused on doing ska songs. So please check out the Dingees and all of their other incarnations like Peg and the Rejected. Let me know what you think. I did a lot of this by memory, so what did I get right? What did I get wrong? And what are your favorite Five Iron Frenzy Day moments, if you have any? You can find me on Twitter at Caleb the Spy, no spaces. On Instagram, that's Caleb the Spy with underscores. And then you can always email me at Caleb the Spy Podcasts at gmail.com, which has no spaces or underscores. Please subscribe and share the podcast. If you're so inclined, leave a rating or review. I have heard that is the most effective way to spread the word about podcasts. And most of all, thank you if you engage with me at all on social media. I do put a lot of time into setting up the daily album anniversary posts, and seeing people get excited to revisit or discover rediscover, or even discover older albums is always a thrill. So thanks for joining me. Happy Five Iron Frenzy Day, and talk to you soon.